I literally expected chapter 383 to start off like this, with the beast of darkness and guts baring their fangs at each other at first and then ending up having a literal heart to heart conversation. Something both have never done before. But I guess I was wrong. Or so far, it seems like that at least has not happened. Chapter 383, Anadi Avidya or Beginningless Ignorance, is a very interesting name for the chapter, with a very special spiritual significance. This idea deserves its very own special video, and the next one will be precisely about that. Let's first start with the cover image of the chapter, which is also the cover image for volume 43. We see Guts with a somewhat resolved look on his face, kneeling between the two pillars. This volume poster reminds me of this illustration from the manga. A young Guts dragging his sword right down the middle of a black path with a dead tree behind him. The Behelit and Zord's wings on one side, and the band of ox sigil with the sword with wings, and the Skull Knight symbol with the rose and thorns on the other. In the cover or volume cover image, you see the same symbolism with a slight difference. On the bottom right is Skull Knight's face as the rose and thorns climb the pillar, and on top of that pillar, if you really zoom in, you see that it has a shield with the band of the hawk sigil on it. On the bottom left, we see a demonic version of this shield that looks more like the open mouth of a beast with fanged teeth and the brand of sacrifice on it, as a demonic tail climbs the pillar. On top of this pillar is a crimson Behelit. Putting Guts between these two extremes suggests that he can go down either path, that both the demonic and the angelic impulses are rising within him. Whatever happens inside the clam can go demonic and take this dark path, or it can go whatever this Skull Knight way with the rose and thorn symbolism means on the right. But the symbolism doesn't end here. In the center, right between Guts' knees, is a demonic figure with wings, which is quite reminiscent of the femto from Saska's Corridor of Dreams ritual. And in the center, right above and behind Guts' head, are two white wings. Do these white wings represent something good? Maybe. Or do they represent the reincarnated Griffith masquerading as God? Below is what Ganishka's twice reincarnated form saw in the vast, desolate darkness. Both of these winged figures above and below likely suggest, in my opinion, the path Guts can take. Now, let's talk about this leaf-like structure inside the stupa. It is indeed a leaf-like structure and not some brain-like structure that references void, which others are speculating. Here is a brain referencing void in Berserk, and here is what the patterns on the structure inside the stupa look like. It has these bumps and ridges and a veiny look to it. This more resembles the patterns on a leaf seen up close. On top of that, these patterns originate from the center of the structure, like they do in a leaf. Notice how, even if it is vague, the patterns originate from a vertical central line and spread outward. From the top, this leaf looks like the leaf of a lotus in its shape, on which the lotus floats on water. If you are still not convinced, here's what a lotus leaf looks like in Berserk, and they are right outside the stupa. As other Berserk YouTubers have already pointed out, the lotus and its leaf are symbols in Buddhism as well as Hinduism, since they symbolize both the spiritual purity of the enlightened being and the gods, as well as the goals in these two religions. The lotus primarily grows in muddy, marshy waters and swamps, and yet it is pristine, thanks to this waxy secretion that covers the surface of the flower and the leaf. Because even though it is essentially surrounded by filth, this filth does not touch it. This quality of being in filth but it not touching you is essentially why this lotus symbolism is so equated with enlightened beings and gods in both Buddhism and Hinduism. To suffer but be untouched by that suffering is the point of the lotus. There are a lot of terms for phenomena that happen when one is in the dark for an extended period of time. If we try to relate what is going on with guts in terms of real world possibilities, prisoner cinema and closed eye hallucination are two such phenomena out of many that somewhat fit here. In the former, experienced primarily by prisoners due to long confinement in the dark, they see a light show of various colors that appears out of the darkness, whereas closed eye hallucinations and closed eye visualizations CEV are hallucinations that occur when one's eyes are closed or when one is in a darkened room. There are 5 levels to this hallucination, and on level 4 of this hallucination, thoughts visually manifest as objects and environments. Level 5 can be entered from complete sensory deprivation as experienced in an isolation tank or a dream trance like state of hypnosis. But even there, it requires great relaxation. Guts' acceptance of his death and his resignation with it may put him in such a state of physical relaxation. He welcomes death, so he resists and fears nothing. According to lucid dreaming researcher Stephen Laverg, on this level, perception can come from either the senses or the imagination. But how does this relate to what is going on with guts and the stupa? Well, dark retreat is an advanced practice in Tibetan Buddhism and Bon. It is a spiritual retreat in a space that is completely absent of light that deliberately utilizes these extended experiences in the dark for spiritual development. These are techniques that lead to the experience of spontaneously arising visual experiences which are said to occur without deliberate effort or conceptual imagination and which appear before the practitioner's eyes. These visual experiences go from unstructured appearances of light, like sparks, fireflies, and so forth, that ultimately coalesce into a vision of deities or the appearance of a luminous goddess known as the Great Seal Mahamudra. To be able to do the traditional dark retreat requires stability in the natural state and is only suitable for advanced practitioners. Here, natural state refers to something called as Rikpa in Tibetan, also understood as Vidya, that is knowledge in Sanskrit. Some have translated Rikpa as Gnosis, which means knowledge, where it signifies a spiritual knowledge or insight into humanity's real nature as divine. Rikpa or Vidya is knowledge of the ground. The opposite of Rikpa is Marikpa or Avidya or ignorance. Guts is clearly not a seasoned practitioner, and so he enters this sensory deprivation in a state of avidya or ignorance. Though I think all his life experiences have brought him closer and closer to knowing what is vidya. This may be the only time in the manga that the word void has been mentioned. I think it is unlikely that he will appear, but it is still within the realm of possibility that Void appears and offers Guts the chance to sacrifice. But I think it is unlikely that he even appears because even though what is happening has some similarities with the eclipse, with the similarities being that both Guts and Griffith were in the throes of despair, both were consumed by thoughts of each other as some source of their suffering, both events involved an egg like magic fetish that helped you actualize your innate power, with the Crimson Bahilit in Griffith's case, the Stupa's dome called Anda, which literally translates to egg, also parallels and functions as this egg symbolism in Guts' case. Griffith is shown an illusion by Ubik, whereas Guts sees the vision of Saska and Griffith in the darkness. Griffith accepts what is shown in the manipulated illusion shown by Ubik, whereas the verdict is still out on what Guts will further see and whether or not he will accept it. Then, after accepting what was shown in this illusion by Ubik, Griffith chants, I sacrifice, gets trapped in this cocoon like structure where his physical, spiritual, and psychological transformation begins, and out pops the demon called Femto. On the other side, Guts too, after seeing the image of Saska and Griffith, gets wrapped up in the Clam. Will he too get a physical transformation like Griffith and become a demon? That is possible. But the reason I find myself against it is because of the nature and the form of the symbols present and of what is happening inside it. It is not Ubik or some other manipulative entity that is showing Guts this vision of Saska and Griffith. No god hands are involved. It is his own mind that is taking him down this path. As I have stated, happens according to the closed eye visions phenomena and the dark retreat and born practices in Tibetan Buddhism. While the X symbolism that so far has been associated with evil is present, it is present in the holy structure of the stupa and therefore not in the evil form of the Bahilith. And additionally, we have the dead tree on top of the stupa, another component of the stupa itself, which is never present in any eclipse or sacrifice rituals. And if I have not already mentioned, the tree on the stupa is the tree of life. So, with the absence of any hints of the hand of evil being explicitly involved, though some may point to Daiba as the hand of evil here, and I guess that is a fair point to an extent, but it does look like Daiba himself is trying to help Guts confront himself. So, with the positive versions of these symbols depicted, I am leaning to the outcome not being demonic. So then, why mention the word void? One reason for the word void being used is that the conditions inside the stupa are just that, a void. You are deprived of sensory info and submerged into a darkness that forces you to look inward. People new to meditation are usually advised to meditate in a quiet place where there are less external distractions. Buddhist Vipassana meditation retreats, for example, try to create these distractionless conditions by preventing you from talking for the entirety of the retreat, which may last longer than a week. There is nothing and nowhere to look at but inward. In fact, your inner world will start speaking by itself once all these external distractions disappear and you truly are with yourself. People are known to run off from these kind of retreats precisely because of that. The self, after all, is the greatest terror. But do you know that even if this is not directly foreshadowing the coming of Void, it does link to him in another way? Take a look at Void's face. His eyes are sealed shut, he has no ears, and I presume the eardrums are punctured. His mouth is mutilated, and I assume, just like Griffith, his torture too involved getting rid of his tongue. And on top of that, he has no nose to smell with. Just like Guts inside the stupa has nothing to look at but his inner world, the same is true for Void all the time. He is endlessly peering into his own inner world because that is the only thing he can perceive. Just as Guts showed up in Griffith's mind when he was confined in the dark in the Tower of Rebirth, Saska and Griffith do so as well. They are his two attachments to life, and so the source of his suffering as well. If you look really closely at the expression on Griffith and Saska's face, you can spot a tinge of negativity in both of those faces. Like they are both looking down at Guts with contempt, like he is unwanted. This is not what actually happened though, but is Guts' false perception of it in his mind. Look at the contempt on Saska's face. You could assume from it that Guts may think that Saska would actually want to go with Griffith instead of staying with him. In the original image, from when Griffith kidnapped and fled with Saska, she is not conscious, and neither is Griffith glaring at him. So, what is going on here? This, in my opinion, is Guts' perception of himself as the one who is always abandoned, unwanted, and left alone by those he loves and cares for. Forever, all alone, always. always alone, always, always, as the evil spirits like to taunt him, sensing his vulnerability. I don't think it is a stretch to say that Guts does not like himself very much. His birth mother was already dead before he was born. His adopted mother, who loved him plenty, died when he was very young. His father Gambino hated him and sold him for 3 silver coins to Donovan. Guts still kept his loyalty to his father and kept trying to win his heart, but who, in his bitterness and resentment, tried to kill him. Griffith too rewarded his friendship and endlessly risking his life for him with betrayal, killing their friends and raping his beloved in front of him. Yes, Guts does not like himself much. I'm not a psychologist, and so I'm neither diagnosing him or calling him a people pleaser, but just noticing that he seems to have this core wound wherein he thinks somewhere that no one wants him, no matter how good he is to them, how much he sacrifices for them, and often he has good reasons to believe it. That, in my opinion, is one reason among many why he always is solitary. He pushes people away before they can do the same to him, but he desperately wants this connection. This, in my opinion, is why his friendship is so deep with Griffith, who offered him genuine friendship for the first time in his life, who risked his life for him, and even then, strangely, denied this feeling of friendship that he obviously has for Guts. This also is why his love for Saska was and is so strong. She was the first person who saw him completely and loved him when everyone in his life had rejected him. Now, Griffith, as the source of Guts' suffering, is easily understood. But what about Saska? Now, if I already have not been controversial, let me be explicitly so. Not for the sake of it, but for pointing out something uncomfortable. I think Guts has some unacknowledged resentment towards Saska. Guts has been saving Saska since the eclipse, and even before that. His love, his patience, his humanity has been tested endlessly as he tries to save her, protect her from everything, sometimes even from himself. But it does not end here. He suspects her of infidelity, or to put it better, of having feelings for Griffith even after what he did to her. I'm not kidding. After the meeting with Griffith at the Hill of Swords, as Guts sets out with Saska for Elfhem, he looks at Saska with what I may rightly or wrongly be labeling as a look of suspicion, or at least a questioning look. This panel is followed by the panel of Saska in Griffith's arms, with Saska trying to touch Griffith. This placement of these two panels together is showing what Guts is thinking of as he looks at Saska. Gus does not know what we the reader know, that the Moonlight Boy is fused to Griffith's vessel, and that Saska very likely senses a sun when she sees Griffith. Very likely. She could easily be responding to Griffith's now super boosted charm that hypnotizes people and draws them to him. Yet another thing that Guts does not know, and which leaves ground for resentment and envy to fester. This two panel combo is followed by Guts looking down and then reaffirming to himself that he will never abandon Saska. Even though he chooses to be the bigger person, the seeds of suspicion, resentment, pain, tiredness, fatigue, one sided love, and duty without any catharsis, any release, any reward are grounding him to the bone and making his sword heavy. Guts, just like Griffith pre eclipse, is taking on the burden of everything, way beyond his human capacity, and all of that self denial and endless duty with no relief from the pain or transmutation of that pain leaves him with a dark swath of emotions that don't want to carry this burden that is Saska, that just wants to engage in the ecstasy it experienced during the eclipse. This can be seen in the malice of the Beast of Darkness towards Saska, who constantly calls her a sacrifice and to do to her what Griffith did. The Beast of Darkness is Guts' unacknowledged self. It is the very monster that Guts sees in every apostle in Griffith but fails to see it in himself as a part of himself, at least so far. Guts was running on fumes as is, but now with Saska taken, it's like his strings have been cut and he is rudderless, and so all of these feelings and emotions just crush him. Perhaps Guts wonders somewhere, do these two, who I valued and continue to value so much, even want me in their life? He knows that Griffith at least outwardly says so, but I think he wonders the same about Saska, and hence this image forms in his mind, with Saska looking at him like that. This may be one reason among many that he chooses death, because he thinks the world that so loathes him and daily torments him would be better off without him. An opposite to this feeling is the beast of darkness who wants to kill and destroy everything because everything rejects him. Towards the end of chapter, this lotus leaf transforms into a clam and swallows guts. What's going on here? One reason for the clam symbolism is what it means for Guts personally. The one time that his father Gambino was kind to him was when he gave him medicine to treat his wounds. This medicine was in this clam shaped container. This reference of Gambino giving Guts medicine is made once again after Guts and Saska make love for the first time and are lying in each other's arms. We are shown an image of a young Guts applying this medicine to himself. So we can likely see what the clam personally means to him, somewhere in the back of his mind. Now, I tried to look for a more impersonal reason for this symbolism to be used here, and while I wasn't able to find a direct and explicit mention of clams or any spiritual religious motives in Buddhism, Hinduism about it, I did, however, find an indirect link that may shed some light here. The first question to ask oneself is, what is inside a clam? The personal answer for Guts makes it medicine. The impersonal answer here is a pearl. While the clam itself does not have direct mention in Buddhism and Hinduism, the pearl within it surely does. The Lankavatra Sutra, the Sutra of Perfect Enlightenment, and the Surangama Sutra also use the money or jewel as metaphor for Buddha nature. In these sutras, a transparent money or jewel within us changes colors depending on the conditions around us, representing the five skandhas. In Buddhism, skandhas refer to the five aggregates of clinging, the five material and mental factors that take part in the perpetual process of craving, clinging, and aversion due to avidya or ignorance. The money or jewel itself represents each being's Buddha nature. But because of the three poisons of ignorance, attachment, and aversion, a being sees only the various colors emitted by the jewel. These are mistakenly perceived as the defilements rather than the purity of the jewel itself, which is merely reflecting conditions around it. Thus, Buddha nature is not perceived and only the five skandhas are seen, which are then conflated with a sense of self in opposition to the Buddhist idea of anatman or no self. In Buddhist philosophy and soteriology, Buddha nature is the innate potential of all sentient beings to become a Buddha, or the fact that all sentient beings already have a pure Buddha essence within themselves. Chintamani is a wish fulfilling jewel resembling a pearl described in Hindu and Mahayana Buddhist traditions. It is one of the several money or jewel images found in Buddhist scriptures. He is one of the Buddha figures holding a Chintamani in his hands. But you might say, even if it is a pearl and is equated with Buddha nature, and yes, a pearl is found in a clam, is it not a stretch to equate and make a direct association with Buddhism with what is going on here? So I present to you this painting by Meiji era Japanese painter and caricaturist Kawanabe Kyosai, who is often credited with inventing manga. The painting is titled Bodhisattva appearing from a clam. And while I agree that this is a somewhat obscure reference, the very mention of a pearl and its association with Buddhism further associates the clam with Buddhism, as seen in this painting. While this is speculation, the mention of terminologies like Anadya Vidya, the presence of the lotus leaf, the clam, and the indirect pearl symbolism makes me lean more and more towards a positive outcome coming out of the stupa. This outcome may look something like this. If you like that and wanted to see the process video of this illustration, you can check out my artwork on my sister channel linked below. Thank you for watching the video till the end, fellow struggler. Till next time.